Imagine sitting across from a parent visibly angry about a discipline issue. You slide the file across the table and start reading the student handbook. You can practically see the parent's jaw clench. When challenged on a grade, a behavioral incident, or a school rule, the instinct of almost every educator is to explain the policy. We want to lay out exactly why the decision was made, operating under the assumption that if the parent just understood the rules, they would agree. But parents arriving with a concern don't process this as a helpful clarification. They experience it as a defense, and defense immediately triggers resistance. The educational terminology that makes perfect sense to the staff sounds like bureaucratic gatekeeping to the family. Both sides dig in. The meeting devolves into a debate over who is right, completely stalling out before anyone even begins to address what the student actually needs. Research into high-stakes conversational dynamics shows that participants establish the relational frame of a meeting within the first 60 to 90 seconds. Every word spoken after that window is filtered through the tone set at the very beginning. This opening window is especially critical in private and faith-based schools. Families who choose these environments have invested extra financial resources and adjusted their lives to be there. They enter the building with elevated expectations of partnership based on shared values. When a meeting in this context starts with an administrator defending a policy, the relational damage is acute. It violates those high initial expectations, quickly turning invested partners into adversaries. Major educational studies back this up. Researchers like Breich and Schneider, along with Mapp and Henderson, have spent decades tracking family-school engagement. Their data shows that schools handling conflict with genuine curiosity, rather than one-directional information sharing, report higher long-term trust and much stronger academic outcomes for the students. Changing how you open a tense meeting does not mean abandoning your standards. It is simply a necessary sequence to build the trust required for the parent to actually hear those standards. The three-part framework is built on that premise. It does not dictate what information you share with a family. It only changes the order in which you share it. Step 1 is to open with curiosity about the family's experience. You invite the parent to speak first by asking a question like, "Before I share anything from our end, I want to make sure I understand what this has been like from your side." You are actively asking for their perspective. Step 2 requires you to name the shared goal. Once the parent has spoken, reflect back what you heard. Even an angry parent wants their child to succeed, so state that explicitly. "It sounds like we both want your student to feel confident in this subject." You establish that you are on the same team. Finally, step 3 is moving to solutions together. This is where you outline the school's perspective and reinforce your requirements. The exact same boundaries are maintained as the old method. The late penalty stays. The behavioral consequence remains. You haven't yielded any institutional authority. Because the parent has already felt heard and validated, their defensive posture drops. They are far more likely to accept the school's accountability measures and work alongside you to correct the student's behavior. Let's look at a common scenario. A parent requests a meeting because their 7th grader received a 0 on an English assignment. The work was submitted one day late, right after a grueling weekend travel soccer tournament. In a typical meeting, the teacher starts by explaining the syllabus policy on late work. The parent interrupts, feeling dismissed, and argues that there should be flexibility for an unusual weekend. The teacher holds firm on fairness to other students, and both adults leave the room frustrated. Now, apply the framework. The teacher opens by asking the parent to walk through exactly how the weekend unfolded from their point of view. Given the floor, the parent explains that the student claimed they had the homework under control, but returned Sunday night completely exhausted and simply failed to complete it. The parent admits the student made a mistake, but feels a 0 is harsh. The teacher validates that this is out of character for the student. They then name the shared goal. They both want the student to develop responsibility, and they both want the grade to accurately reflect the student's capability. With that common ground established, the teacher clearly states that the 0 stands according to the rules, but collaborates with the parent on how the student can manage their time better for the next tournament. The teacher enforced the exact same policy. By simply withholding the explanation for the first 90 seconds, they turned a hostile critic into a supportive ally. Veteran educators sometimes push back on this approach. Following a specific sequence of questions to lower the temperature in the room can feel like an artificial tactic or even manipulative. Tricking a parent to achieve a hidden agenda would be manipulation. but purposefully creating the exact conditions where hard truths can actually be communicated and accepted is just effective communication. Leading with a defensive explanation of your rules does not make you more honest. It actively degrades the precise environment you need to hold students accountable. Genuine honesty between a school and a family relies on a solid foundation of mutual respect. Organizing your conversations to prioritize listening first is the most reliable way to build that foundation. For school leaders, the goal is to make this a consistent culture across the entire building. If a parent experiences empathy from one teacher but defensive posturing from another, institutional trust erodes. Training your staff doesn't require a full professional development day. In a single 20-minute faculty meeting, start the first 9 minutes walking through the framework's 3 parts. Dedicate the final 11 minutes to brief role plays, asking everyone to try the opening question next week. You do not need to wait for the perfect meeting to start using this. Suspend the immediate urge to explain yourself. Change the first sentence you use, and you will change the outcome of the entire conversation.